Welcome to Trouble with Tish. I am Tish and I be Trouble. And if you're a returner, welcome back. Today we have another Mask Monday. So if you want to find out what happens in chapter 16, stay tuned.
Troubles on the mind, hands around your throat, out in open waters trying to stay afloat. Remember to forget the future and the past.
Alright, like I said, we have Mask Monday, and this is the Canuck Pearl Skin Revitalizing Mask. Don't know, but we're going to slap this on and then we're going to get going with our book. We are in chapter 16 of The Rise of the Deva'shi, which is the first book in the Chronicles of Partholon, and it is by Jennifer Alice Provost. Alright, we have our mask on our face. We're going to get going with chapter 16. Aylmer and I rose shortly after second dawn, which I knew was profoundly late for him, and returned to my chambers so I could ready myself for the day. Once we entered, I rummaged through my things, and he took his typical seat on the floor, directly before the fire. I asked him why he seemed to prefer the floor to a chair, for he even sat on the floor in the great hall at times, and he replied that it was an old habit from his youth. He did not speak further on the matter, and while I did want to know more of his life before we met, he obviously did not want to speak of it, so I changed the subject. "We may begin to patrol again," I asked brightly as I sat next to him. "Our sojourn yesterday made me realize how much I've come to hate these walls." "You feel well enough?" he asked, and I affirmed my good health by nodding vigorously. "When Finley is available, you may patrol with him, and him alone," he said firmly. I knew that the second hunter was one of the few that held Aylmer's unwavering trust. "Why not with you?" I asked, looking at him through my lashes. "Did you learn to do that with your eyes, to bend me to your will?" he countered, as he pulled me back against his chest. "If you went with me, I would not be looking for danger, but a secluded spot to rip your clothes from you," he murmured into my ear. "You accomplish that quite well here in my own rooms. Why would you need to take me somewhere?" I turned to regard him as I stared at him with my wide eyes. He mumbled that he still could deny me nothing. He sighed as he rose, taking me with him. "I need to meet with the Queen at midday, but we can ride together until then," he said with a resigned air. We went to the north, which Aylmer said had been very quiet of late. He was a fair distance ahead of me, and as I watched him, my thoughts returned to those of earlier that morning. I realized that while I had certainly trusted him with my life, I loved him more than I had thought possible. My mind traveled back to a few mornings ago, when Aylmer told me that he wanted to make me his, truly his, and I wanted nothing more than to proclaim to the world that I belonged to him alone. I decided that when we stopped to rest, I would talk to him, for I wanted him to know exactly what I was feeling, to avoid the misunderstandings that plagued us such a short time ago. But I became so nervous thinking about the impending conversation, my hands began to tremble. Again, I knew I was experiencing an irrational fear, for I knew he loved me and would welcome any discussion that centered on my love for him. I looked up and noticed leaves fluttering on the trees and realized that something other than anxiety was causing me to shake. I sidled up next to him and caught his wrist. "What are these tremors?" I asked. He was about to respond when we detected a foul odor of demons wafting up from the nearby ravine. We left our horses a safe distance from the edge and climbed down the rough path, cruelly carved from the living rock by the rushing stream at its base. We stealthily approached the water, Aylmer leading the way, when he held up his hand to halt me. He slowly advanced to look downstream, then abruptly turned and pushed me into the ravine wall. "What is it?" I began to ask, but he covered my mouth with his, pinning me into jagged rocks. I was confused as why he had decided to do this now, and I was about to push him away when the tremors became more intense. "Stay still," Aylmer breathed into my mouth. His wide eyes indicated the streambed, and I saw demons traveling down the waterway. I wondered why he was letting them go without a fight when the source of the tremors, one of their huge, lumbering beasts, passed. It was the size of a small cottage, with thick, scaly skin, the color of dried blood. 3 curved horns protruded from its head, and it was led by a metal collar around its neck, attached to heavy chains. The beast's footfalls were what caused the tremors, and as it passed, small pebbles were shaken loose and rained down upon us. I could not understand how they failed to notice our presence as they were passing only a short distance away. I tore my eyes from the nightmare procession to Aylmar and realized he was somehow keeping us hidden. Beads of sweat were forming on his brow, and his eyes betrayed the strain he was under. I felt magic coming off of him and washing over me in ripples, the power of which lifted my feet off the ground. The last of the demons finally passed us, and once I could no longer see them, I signaled that it was safe. He let the spell end, and I realized that magic had not lifted me up, but he was holding me against him, and as he fell to the ground, I tumbled along with him as we became a tangled knot of limbs. Aylmar gasped for air, and I moved to his side to let him catch his breath. "Did you count how many?" he panted. 54 and 3 beasts, I replied. "How did you hide us?" "With a glamour," he said. "I'm sorry for not telling you what I was doing, but I needed to touch you, to hide you as well." I raised an eyebrow at him. "And all you could think to do was kiss me?" "I also needed you to stay quiet," he replied with a smirk. "Next time cover my mouth with your hand," I said playfully. "Next time I will use you as a distraction while I evade them," he retorted with a grin. I grasped his hand as I lay next to him, thinking that I, yet again, owed him my life. I moved back to his side as his breathing had calmed and brushed the hair from his brow. "You are always taking care of me," I said as I stroked his forehead. "I care for you more than anything else," he said as he brought my lips to his. Aylmar pulled my body on top of his, and I straddled him as we kissed, feeling him stir against me. I moved against him, and he moaned and slowly turned until I was on my back underneath him. He cautiously placed a hand on my hip, as if he thought I might knock it away, and stroked the exposed part of my skin between my vest and belt. My hands crept under his shirt, and I felt the taut muscles of his sides, and I could feel that now familiar scar across his ribs. He guided me lower, and my hand felt him for the first time, hard and throbbing and straining against his clothes. My hesitant touch excited him more than I would have thought possible as he pulled me against him, so tightly we could have melded into one. I felt my pulse quicken along with his as Aylmar placed his hand on my breast. Through the thick leather I could feel the heat of him as he gently squeezed me. His mouth left mine and traveled lower, covering my neck in kisses as I pushed myself against him. Aylmar's lips ended their reign over me when they reached the edge of my vest. The boundary, a tangible line, for another he was not sure he should cross. He raised his head and pressed his forehead to mine, again panting. "You do love getting me on my back in the dirt," I teased, putting my arms around his neck. He moved to the ground next to me, lightly running his fingers across my belly. "You have no idea," he said, to which I replied I did, and resumed stroking the hard bulge that remained. He grabbed my hand and squeezed my fingers as gently as he had squeezed my breast a few moments ago. "Always testing my limits," he said. He got to his feet and pulled me along with him, and again became the first hunter. "Well, I want nothing more than to keep you in such a position," he murmured as he brushed sand from my back. "We need to inform the Queen of what we saw. There haven't been that many demons so close to Tegernon since Escott's time." We walked up the path to where our horses patiently waited, our arms wound around each other's waist. I asked him about the glamour he used to hide us, again impressed at his command of various magics. "I've known how to use it for some time, but it's a difficult spell," he said. "It casts a fog around me, so I blend with my surroundings, such as a tree or a rock. It won't work if I'm standing in the open." "What if you're lying on the ground?" I asked, thinking that the tall grass would make good cover. "Then one of the beasts may step on me," he replied. I shuddered. When we started seeing them at the border, we thought they were walking nightmares. I turned to mount my horse, and as I reached for the reins, Aylmar wrapped his arms around me and buried his face in my hair. "You are a walking dream for me," he murmured into my neck. "I hope I can make you happy." I twisted in his arms to face him, looking into his stormy eyes. "You already have," I said. "I can only promise to love you in return." He smiled his special half-smile reserved only for me. "I will hold you to that," he said. We returned to Tegernon well before midday, and went immediately to the Queen's chamber to advise her of our encounter. Elmar relayed that the demons were coming from the north and heading southeast, while following the water to avoid leaving tracks. The queen consulted one of her mini maps and learned that the stream continued on the same bearing until it emptied into the sea. She decided to confer with Herrick that evening and then speak with Elmar in the morning to discuss what should be done with this new information. Ashera seemed visibly shaken by our report. The great number of demons alone was enough cause for concern, but these beasts seemed to be encroaching further into our borders with each passing day. My first hunter assured her that they could be dealt with, which seemed to allay her concerns, if only for a short time. Elmar kept his word, and that evening I patrolled with Finley during the second watch. I was too shy to ask Finley if Elmar had said anything about me, but he knew my unasked questions and stated Elmar seemed to be in better mood of late, and had resumed droning on about me, as Finley delicately put it. I begged him to tell me what he said, but he insisted he ignored the first hunter as well as he could during these episodes, and asked me to please try and keep him happy, to which I gladly agreed. Upon our return to Tegernon, I offered to take Finley's mount to the stable so he could rest, as I was wide awake. I also mentioned that he may want to visit the Queen, or maybe not, since that would keep them both from resting, to which Finley actually blushed. I declared that he now knew how I felt when he embarrassed me about Elmar. He grinned as he accepted my offer and handed me the reins and whispered that I had made the Queen a happy woman. My cheeks were hot as I walked to the stable. They were still pink when I crossed paths with Kieran, who told me he was leaving. "I thought you were to remain here," I asked. "So did I. Elmar just told me a short time ago. I'm being sent to the Western contingent. He made it seem as though it was a great honor." His voice was flat as he told me this, and I questioned why Elmar would do this. "Why do you think?" was his sarcastic reply as he stalked away. I handed the horses off to a groom, for once being in no mood to deal with tack and brushes, wondering if Elmar learned of what Kieran said to Braun, and this was his way of eliminating the problem. I returned to my chambers and smiled when I found the first hunter asleep in my bed. I changed into a nightdress, fully intending to join him, but my thoughts were racing too quickly for me to sleep. To keep from disturbing him, I went out to the balcony and stared off to the dark courtyard. Elmar sensed I was near, and when he awoke a short time later, he found me combing out my hair. He greeted me with a kiss and asked if I would like him to take over. "This task isn't beneath the first hunter?" I asked with a wry grin. He admonished me with a glance as he took the comb from my hand and proceeded to gently untangle the long strands. Once he was finished, he ran his fingers through my hair, twirling the ends around his fingers. "Would you like me to braid it for you?" he asked. "I thought you didn't care for it braided." "I don't," he said. "If it were up to me, you would never bind it, but leave it loose and flowing." "That would not be practical," I said. Without another word, he grabbed handfuls of my hair and twisted it until it hung down my back in a fiery rope. While he tied off the end, I told him of my encounter with Kieran. "He is not just being sent to the Western contingent, he will lead it," Elmar clarified, and I exhaled a great sigh of relief. "I thought you might want to be sending him away because of what he said to Braun." As soon as the words were out of my mouth, I knew I should not have spoken. He dropped my braid and placed his hands on my shoulders and leaned close to my ear as he spoke. "I wasn't aware of anything he said to Braun," he said. I remained silent, and he moved in front of me, his back against the short stone railing. "Well? Are you going to tell me, or do I need to send for them?" I wanted to look away, but his gaze held me fast to my seat. "Kieran was drinking with Braun, and said that he would like to take me from you and perform a duty that you are not," I said, thoroughly dreading his reaction. "I thought you knew, or I would have told you sooner," I quickly added as he knelt in front of me and placed his hands on the back of my neck. "I'm not angry with you," he said. "It's not your responsibility to report every drunken word spoken in the hall. Braun, however, should have told me. He and Finley thought it would only make you angry, so they decided not to tell you and keep Kieran out of your sight." "Finley?" he asked, raising a brow. "Is my rage so legendary that my second keeps things from me as well?" I quickly pressed my lips to his, partly to diffuse the situation, partly as an apology for keeping things from him. "Promise me you won't be mad at Braun and Finley. They were only trying to protect you and me, and they mentioned you may beat Kieran, so they just wanted to protect him as well." "What if I promise not to be angry with Braun and Finley? Become angry with Kieran for daring to speak of you in that manner? and discuss with you this duty I do not perform? Elmar countered as he pulled me off the bench and against his chest. My legs curled around him as his mouth went to my neck, and my eyes rolled back in my head from the way he made me feel. Maybe instead of discussing it, you can show me these duties yourself? I said. Unfortunately, my words caused him to abandon my neck as he raised his eyes. Are you sure? He asked. You know I would never demand this of you. But it's not fair to you, I replied. And I do want to show you how much I love you. You show me every time I look at you, he said. Every time your eyes find mine and you smile, I know. He kissed me, one of his passionate kisses that made me so weak. If we were not already on the ground, I would have fallen. You do not need to do anything for me, he murmured, now nuzzling my ear. I find myself intrigued as of late, I said softly as I leaned very close to him, with a part of you I never get to play with. At that moment, as Elmar took my lips with the most fervor he had shown since our night in the arena, I had thoroughly tested his limits and knew exactly where his boundaries lay. He rose and carried me with my legs wrapped around him and his hands under my thighs, not bothering to release my lips as we crossed the room and up the stairs to my bed. We fell onto the soft cushions, his arms keeping me close as he murmured that I was welcome to play with anything I would like. I reached lower and felt him, as firm as he had been the day before, and my streak of boldness returned as I unfastened his pants and placed my hand on the hard shaft within. I gasped when I felt the size of it, and felt a small shiver of fear as I wondered how it could possibly fit where it was intended. Elmar moaned as I touched him, a low, throaty noise I had never heard from him before. I realized that I was answering him with a similar sound, as his hands moved under my dress, gently caressing my hips as I strained to move closer to him. His mouth left mine and traveled to my breast, while his hands grasped my waist, but as I unlaced his shirt and tried to push it off his shoulders, he saw a shaft of light hit the floor. Hells, he hissed, as he moved to the side of me, his frustration making him press his face into the cushions. I asked him what could possibly be wrong, and he quickly turned back to me. Nothing with you, he assured me. Don't think that for a moment. I have to meet with Ashera by second dawn to discuss setting up the next trials for Murin. Murin? I repeated. The Nuvi who won the trial by combat, he reminded. I didn't notice, I said as I stroked his chest. My attention was captured by another, and I never saw the event below me. He smiled warmly at my words, and I asked him how long this meeting would take. Afterward, I need to speak with Herrick, he said as he practically spat the prelate's name. About the demons we saw yesterday? Elmar rubbed his eyes, and he came to the realization that his day had been planned out for him, not leaving him time to accomplish the one thing he really wanted. What about now? I asked, knowing that we still had time before second dawn, and I did not want him to leave. He moved back to me and propped himself up on his elbow, and his hair fell around my face like a shining chestnut curtain. I will not rush making love to you, Elmar said as he caressed my cheek with the back of his hand. You are too beautiful and perfect for that. Will you wait for me until tonight? I would wait for you forever, I replied. All right. Next Monday we have chapter 17. I was getting a little spicy there. I don't know that I'm a fan of reading the spicy stuffs, especially online. I mean, I guess it's not like graphic, but that was graphic enough for me. All right. So this is a collab with the Beauty Ninjas. It is the Beauty Ninja Mask Monday after all. So I have linked the playlist for the Beauty Ninjas down in the description box. You should go check them out and see what they have going on for their Mask Mondays, because they don't really read books. Except for Sue. She reads the Bible. She reads a bit of the Bible. So, you know, not everybody's going to be as boring as me. Time to take off the masks. I wish these masks got a little further up in the eye area there, because The rest of my face feels real good, but the problem is, of course, that, you know, they wouldn't stay where I put them. But, this one feels nice. CeraVe. Feels good on the skin. Alright, like I said, go check out the other beauty ninjas and see what they have going on for their Mask Mondays. I have also linked the playlist for the rest of the chapters that I have already read, in case you need to catch up. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe. All that fun stuff is below. I hope every single one of you has an absolutely amazing day, and I will see you all next time. Bye.
Troubles on the mind, hands around your throat, out in open waters trying to stay afloat. Remember to forget the future and the